Hey everybody, our magazine for this week is Benjamin Franklin. This is video one. We're going to be reading pages 2 through 7. Here's our cover. What did Ben, Mozart, and Beethoven do with 37 glass bowls and a case filled with water? I have no idea. Go fly a kite. How Ben discovered the Gulf Stream. It's going to be an electrifying experiment. So if you need to go grab your magazine, pause this video and go do that. Otherwise, let's get started on page 2, top left. A few of Ben Franklin's contributions. Young Ben Franklin wanted to be a sailor and see the world beyond colonial Boston. Instead, he learned the printing trade and became the most famous American of this day. He was best known writer, scientist, and inventor in the New World. Europeans admired Franklin too. They were impressed by his discoveries, especially his experiments with electricity. They also enjoyed the common sense and humor that made his Richard's Almanac an international bestseller. Franklin was the oldest and many believed the wisest of the United States founders. He was a legislator or a lawmaker, the Postmaster General, a diplomat, and a statesman. He helped write both the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. He talked the French into taking the American side during the Revolutionary War, and he negotiated peace with Britain. Ben Franklin was quite a person. Let's take a look at this photo on the top of page 2. The caption reads, "In Franklin's day, there were no fire hydrants. There were also no public water systems. When a fire broke out, anyone unlucky enough to be trapped in a burning building usually died. Franklin organized the Union Fire Company, Philadelphia's first firefighters. Each one carried a leather bucket to haul water and a canvas bag to remove household goods. Once these volunteer firefighters were in place, Franklin offered Philadelphia homeowners America's first fire insurance." Interesting. This photo with the horse. Franklin was deputy postmaster of the colonies. He wrote America's postal routes, measured distances, and shook up management. He also improved service. For example, he had the mail between New York and Philadelphia delivered 3 times a week in the summer instead of once. And he introduced home delivery for a small fee. After the colonies began to fight for their freedom, the Second Continental Congress elected Franklin Postmaster General. He was the first person to hold that position. Here's another Franklin first, this image. The caption reads, "In Franklin's time, there were no hospitals, so sick people were often cared for at home. Franklin believed that hospitals would be useful, and he fought to get one started. He is responsible for the first American hospital, which opened in 1751. Wow. A bunch of his stamps here. Page 3. It's this image of Benjamin Franklin, and the caption reads, "Franklin proposed paper money to replace gold and silver coins. His portrait appears on the $100 bill today. Today, the only other note that does not feature a U.S. president is the $10 bill. It shows Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury. The $20 bill is scheduled to be redesigned with the abolitionist Harriet Tubman on the front. She will replace President Andrew Jackson." Let's go ahead and turn to page 4. Top of page 4. There we go. Young Ben. Ben Franklin was born in Boston in 1706. He was the 10th of 17 children. Ben went to school for just 2 years before going to work in his father's soap and candle shop. At the time, school was a luxury that most tradespeople couldn't afford. But Ben hated soap making, so his father sent him to his older brother James to learn printing. As an apprentice, a tradesperson in training, that's what that means. Ben had to promise to work for James until he was 21. That was 9 long years away. Ben loved to write, but he knew James would never knowingly print the writings of his 16-year-old brother. So Ben signed his witty essays, Silence Do Good. He slipped them under the print shop's door. James didn't realize this and published several of Ben's essays in the New England Courant, the newspaper he had started. The brothers did not get along. After one bitter quarrel, Ben ran away to New York and then to Philadelphia, the place he called home for the rest of his life. How interesting. This image says, the art of making money plenty. I can't really read what that says. If you have a magnifying glass at home, try reading that. This image has the caption, as soon as he reached Philadelphia, hungry young Ben bought 3 large rolls. He had walked through the city holding one roll under each arm while he munched on the third. A teenage girl who stood in the doorway that morning laughed at Ben was Deborah Reed. She later became his wife. Try this. Ben created many rebuses. A rebus is a puzzle made up of pictures or symbols. Ah, can you figure this one out? So this is a puzzle made of pictures, symbols, and words. I wonder if you can figure it out. Bottom of page 4. This map here looks like the colonies. Ben was born in Boston in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. In the early 1700s, the land along the Atlantic coast was home to settlers and Native Americans. It was divided into 13 colonies ruled by the British king. To the west lay a huge amount of land where Native Americans lived. In this cartoon here, Ben loved to experiment. One day, he was lying on his back in the water while hanging on to a kite string. As the wind pushed the kite, it pulled Ben through the water for almost a mile. We have sports like that today. We just don't, I guess, call that device a kite. This nice image here on page 5. Let's go to the top first with this picture. When Ben ran away from his brother's shop, he took a ship to New York. Once he learned there was already a printer in New York, he left. Philadelphia was less than 50 years old when Franklin arrived in 1723. It was the starting point for most pioneers heading west, and it was already about as big as Boston. And the caption down here reads, more than anything else, Ben loved to read. After reading a book that recommended not eating meat, he sometimes ate a vegetarian diet. Very cool. Let's go ahead and turn to page 6. Up at the top of page 6 here, it reads, printing and publishing. Ben came to Philadelphia to be a printer, and as printer, he accomplished a lot. He made the first copperplate printing press in America. As owner and printer of the Pennsylvania Gazette, he printed news about people living in Pennsylvania. Local news was uncommon at that time. When his Gazette became the most important newspaper in the colonies, he used the postal service to deliver the paper quickly. Franklin also turned out dozens of essays, articles, and pamphlets. He wrote thousands of letters to more than 4,000 people. He also wrote a 4-part autobiography and Poor Richard's Almanac, which was published once a year. It was very popular, and people still treasure copies of it today. Poor Richland says, make haste slowly. This image, spanning both pages 6 and 7, looks like a printing press here. Another one over here, possibly. And let's read this caption. Printing took practice and strength in the 18th century. Ben set type for the New England Courant and the Pennsylvania Gazette, and he also helped print them. Pieces of type were set by hand, locked into metal frames, and laid on the bed of a hand press. A leather ball stuffed with ink was used to apply ink to the type. Then a sheet of damp paper was laid over the type and covered. Next, the flat upper plate of the press, called the platen, was screwed down onto the bed. It pressed the paper against the type. It took 2 workers to run the press. Printing was a long, hard process. So what that means is this metal plate down here, they had little metal pieces with all the letters, and they would lay the letters in there to spell out what they wanted, covered in ink, and then the top piece would press a paper onto it, and you'd peel the paper off, and it would have the letters on there, the words. Kind of like the first printers. Well, exactly like that, actually. All right, page 7. Another Franklin first. It wasn't easy for most people to get books, so Ben set up a club in which people shared their books. Each club member, and anyone else who wished, put in money to buy more books. 50 people joined. Anyone could read the books in the club room, but only members could take them home. The club started in 1731. It was the first circulating library in America. This almanac. Almost every colonial home had an almanac, which is a calendar book filled with advice for farmers. It includes weather, predictions, general information, and witty sayings. Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac was the most popular. Another Franklin first here. Franklin published the first novel printed in America, Pamela by Samuel Richardson. So many Franklin firsts, how interesting. So in this video, we learned about him moving to Philadelphia to be a publisher, how he went to live with his brother and kind of learned the trade, many of his contributions. So come back for video 2. I'll see you then.